Panic alarms are going off in WNBA offices, and not because of another missed layup. Experts are warning that 2026 could be the last year we see Caitlin Clark in the league. Yes, you heard that right. And no, the panic isn't coming from the players. But before we start, how do you think the WNBA survives without its biggest draw? Comment your thoughts below.
I feel like we're quickly headed towards a scenario where there's going to be a lockout in the WNBA. And this is something I've talked about a few times because I think the players, they just have a much higher perception around their dollar value worth than the league is actually worth. And some of this stuff will work itself out, right? Like if you look at the WNBA, attendance, viewership, like merchandise sale, everything's up and to the right. Sponsorships, they're making a lot more money, TV rights, everything. But most people don't understand the dynamic between the NBA owning a large chunk of the business, the owners owning a large chunk of the revenue stream, and the players are out there every day. I mean, you just look at what was happening in that 60 Minutes interview. Aaliyah Boston said that she wants commas in her paycheck, $1 million+ essentially, right? And that's not happening anytime soon in the WNBA. Like, it's just not going to happen. A'ja Wilson makes $200,000 a year. And we're going to get to a point where that's going to set in as reality. And I think the players are going to have a really hard time dealing with that because they're going on the road and they're seeing these sold out arenas. But the economics of the league just don't give that opportunity.
Let's get straight to the point. Right now, the WNBA is acting as if it has all the time in the world dragging its feet in these CBA negotiations and assuming it still holds all the cards. Meanwhile, every signal from people who truly understand the business says the same thing. The clock is ticking, and Caitlin Clark might not be here after 2026. And this isn't just random chatter on Twitter, we're talking about actual industry insiders. These are people who analyze the money, the contracts, the media rights, and they're warning that if things continue down this path, Clark could walk. Not retire. Not fade away. But take her talent elsewhere, simply because the league's decisions make staying less appealing.
As you guys know, negotiations have essentially stalled for a new collective bargaining agreement in the WNBA. For the first time ever, WNBA players think they have leverage. Key word, think. Now, in their defense, they do have leverage in the short term. The problem is, if this short-term leverage is used and the 2026 WNBA season is canceled, it could have devastating long-term impacts on pretend basketball.
Why 2026? Simple, that's when the current CBA expires. And the way things are shaping up, there's a very real chance the players' demands and the league stance won't meet in the middle. Normally, that's just dry sports business talk. But here's the kicker. Caitlin Clark isn't just another WNBA player, she is the player. The surge in ratings, attendance, merch sales, all of it leans heavily on her second-year momentum and projected future. The WNBA is riding a one-person wave. And instead of locking in that wave for the long haul, it's facing short-term pressure from both its own players and an outside competitor, unrivaled, which is waving big checks at the same talent the WNBA needs to keep its relevance. Here's where the mess started. The players see the spike in ratings. They see sold-out fever games. They see Clark's jersey flying off the shelves and the media giving the WNBA more attention than it's had in decades. And their conclusion: it's time to get paid, and not just a little paid. We're talking about demands to take salaries from roughly $150,000 to $1 million.
WNBA players right now, they are looking at details like ratings, attendance, social media impressions, increased mainstream interest. They are using that as leverage in an attempt to justify a massive increase in their minimum wage salaries. Most people get a raise, they're asking for 10%, maybe 20%. WNBA players, they are demanding to go from $150,000 a year.
In a vacuum, sure, it's easy to say, pay them. They deserve it. But that's detail thinking. The big picture is that the WNBA's financial model isn't stable enough to guarantee that kind of jump. You can't promise someone a penthouse salary when the building is still under construction. The NHL offers a cautionary tale. That league had decades of history, established fan bases, and strong TV deals, and still, when it canceled the entire 2004-05 season over labor disputes, the fallout was brutal. Their broadcast presence shrank, sponsors cooled, and while the NHL clawed its way back, it never regained its cultural peak. That was the NHL. Now imagine the WNBA, which doesn't have that kind of cushion, skipping an entire season in 2026. That's not a bump in the road, it's a crater. This is where Unrivaled enters the picture. On paper, it's a secondary women's basketball league co-founded by some of the WNBA's biggest names. In reality, it's also functioning as player leverage. Top stars are making more there in 2 months than they make in the WNBA over an entire season. Last year, Unrivaled even offered Caitlin Clark over $1 million to join them. Do you think that number gets smaller by 2026? Not a chance. This is exactly why insiders are warning that 2026 could be Clark's final year in the WNBA. If the CBA talks collapse and the season is cancelled, players like Clark have options and very lucrative ones. The WNBA doesn't. If Clark walks, so do the rating spikes, merch surges, and casual fan interest that's been building since her rookie year. And here's the WNBA's biggest problem. It's negotiating like it's the NBA or NFL. Those leagues have the brand power to weather a holdout. The WNBA has Caitlin Clark and maybe a handful of names that draw attention during the Olympics. This is not a deep bench of cultural icons.
According to players in the WNBA, we are owed this money. Pay us what we're owed. Pay us what we're owed. Yippee! The only thing WNBA players are thinking about is getting paid now. They're not thinking about the future. They're not thinking about the long-term viability of the league. They're not thinking about what happens if this sudden increase in growth is not sustainable.
The players believe Unrivaled's early success proves they have sustainable leverage. But success here is relative. Yes, they reported $27 million in revenue in their first year, but profit? Zero. They're relying on media partners like TNT to keep writing big checks. If the numbers don't hold, those checks vanish, and so does the safety net the players think they have. This is where Caitlin Clark's role becomes so critical and so dangerous for the WNBA's future. She's not just the face of the league. She's the reason the average sports fan even knows the WNBA schedule. The fever around her rookie year didn't fade in year 2, if anything, it intensified. She's proven she can carry not just a team, but an entire league's attention. If she leaves, there's no next Clark waiting in the wings. The proof is in the numbers. Look at the attendance drops in games she doesn't play, or the ratings when the Fever aren't on the broadcast schedule. That's not a league thriving across the board, that's one player holding it up.
So I'm just going to double down on it. Nobody, and I mean nobody, is going to sign more than 1 year. Any free agent this year will not sign more than 1 year because of the CBA.
Yeah.
When 2026 comes around, the entire league will be free agents except for people on their rookie deals. I don't even know, how does that even work? I don't, to the GMs,
GMs, assemble.
Good luck.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough.
When insiders say 2026 could be the last year we see Clark in the WNBA, they're not predicting a graceful retirement at 24, they're warning that the business side could push her to take her talent elsewhere. Somewhere the money is bigger, the schedule is lighter, and the off-court headaches are fewer. Here's why that possibility has people quietly panicking inside the league office. The WNBA's recent growth metrics are fragile. Sponsors are here because Clark is here. Networks are paying because her games pull in viewership spikes. Merchandise sales are up because her name is on the back. Take that away, and you don't just slow growth, you slam it into reverse. The smart move would be to lock Clark into a league-friendly deal before the CBA showdown, something lucrative enough to keep her without wrecking the salary structure. But pride and bad math seem to be steering the ship. The league doesn't want to set a precedent where one player earns exponentially more than everyone else, even if that player is the reason everyone else is earning more in the first place. Meanwhile, players see Unrivaled not as a risky startup, but as proof they can make real money outside the WNBA. And maybe they can for a while. But if Unrivaled folds and the WNBA's brand is already damaged by a cancelled season, that's not leverage anymore. That's 2 burned bridges and nowhere to play. The insiders making these 2026 predictions aren't anti-WNBA, they're realists. They see a league gambling everything on a CBA fight while its most valuable asset has clear, high-paying alternatives. And if you think Clark isn't paying attention to that tug of war, think again. Athletes at her level don't just want a paycheck, they want stability, growth, and a league that treats them like the business engine they are. If the CBA talks collapse, the season is cancelled, and 2026 rolls around, there's a very real chance Clark takes the Unrivaled money or another outside opportunity. And if that happens, the WNBA isn't just losing a star, it's losing the reason casual fans even check the scores. For those saying, they'll find another star, here's the truth. Stars like Clark don't come around every year. Her college-to-pro transition brought in audiences who had never watched a WNBA game before. She's not replaceable. In sports business, losing an irreplaceable asset because you misread your leverage is the kind of mistake you don't come back from. Now, let's put her second-year reality under a microscope, because that's where the danger gets obvious. She's no longer a rookie. She's carried a struggling Fever team into relevance, absorbed relentless defensive targeting, and built a media presence bigger than the league's own channels all in less than 2 seasons. Her stat line is one thing, but her impact is another. Even when she's not scoring big, her presence changes defensive schemes, broadcast schedules, and ticket prices. When she's on the floor, the WNBA feels like a pro league. When she's not, it too often feels like a sideshow trying to fill seats. That's not a knock on other players, it's the reality of star-driven sports. The NBA learned it with Magic, Bird, and Jordan. The NFL learned it with its quarterbacks. But here's the difference. Those leagues built systems to keep the product watchable even when their biggest stars were gone. The WNBA hasn't done that yet. That's why 2026 is so dangerous. If the season is lost, Clark doesn't have to wait it out. She can play in Unrivaled for massive money. She can go overseas for bigger paychecks and lighter travel. She can even take a year to rest and cash endorsement checks that dwarf her WNBA salary. Here's the money math. Unrivaled is dangling million-dollar offers for Clark. The WNBA's current max salary is under $250,000. Even with a 50% raise, it's not close. The only way the WNBA competes is by selling her on the bigger picture, the chance to build a lasting legacy as the foundation of the league. But you can't sell someone on the future if you might not have a 2026 season. And it's not just a pay gap, it's a respect gap. Clark has seen how parts of the veteran culture have treated her. Hard fouls, petty comments, and lukewarm welcomes. If you're her, you have to ask why fight through that for less money and more games when you have better options. Meanwhile, Unrivaled is playing the long game, announcing raises, adding roster spots, giving stars promotional roles. Their pitch is simple: we'll pay you more, play you less, and treat you like the main event. For a player already carrying a heavy load in the WNBA, that's tempting, especially if labor peace isn't guaranteed. Here's the nightmare scenario the WNBA doesn't want to face. Clark leaves, Unrivaled eventually folds, and the WNBA's brand is too damaged to bring her back. Sponsors move on. Casual fans stop checking scores. And the league is back to leaning on the NBA just to keep the lights on. This isn't panic because Clark hates the WNBA. It's panic because the business decisions being made now could make staying an illogical choice for her by 2026. And if that happens, the fallout will be brutal. Oh, will Caitlin Clark still be in a WNBA jersey after 2026, or will the league's own missteps push her out the door? The experts have their predictions. What's yours?